Hello, Muni Hoops Nation, and welcome to another episode of the Road to Muni Podcast. As you can see, we got the great return of my co-host, Coach Kevin Lubbers. Coach, welcome back to the podcast here.
Yeah, thanks. I know we had a little some schedule juggling last year, and they'd rather see your shiny face than mine anyway. So I put a little glare on the camera when I'm on, so brighten people's day. But.
Yeah, we need that. We need that brightening of some people's day. And speaking of which, you may need to brighten some people's day coming up here as we're officially into selection show week. We will have a full bracket out on Thursday. No more speculating. No more ands, ifs, or buts. I mean, it's that time of year, and I know that not everybody will be happy, but in general perspective, it is an awesome week, and we're gonna have 64 teams that are gonna be officially on their road to Muni here. Yeah,
what a fun week, and bittersweet for some. I mean, some seasons are ending, some seniors that careers are over and that type of stuff. But the field is starting to narrow, and it's going to get down from everybody down to one here over the next few weeks, and 64 of them are going to get a crack at it. So it'll be fun to watch that unfold this week, and I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about on today's show, and then also as we move into the rest of the week and everything else.
Well, that was the next point, is that this is actually officially our last show on this channel. As we've talked about earlier in the year, our next two episodes will actually our tournament preview and then our round of 16 preview, which will be at Muni, will actually both be on the NEI channels. We're excited to bring that one. I've already been starting up working on the presentation and the PowerPoint here to get things ready to go. I tested it out a little bit last week with things, and I was glad I did, because some of the visuals from hearing back from people were hard to see, so it's good to know and good feedback to pull into the next podcast here. But Coach, getting into some of these conference tournaments, we are actually now 10 after today. We're taping currently on a Sunday. Bellevue is already locked up the North Star one, so we're officially down to 10 teams here that have auto bids left, or 10 leagues that have auto bids left. So we are going to have a total of 36, but we have some to be over the next couple of days to iron out. But for those that haven't watched, this has been an awesome week of college basketball and an awesome week of NEI basketball. But one guy we're going to talk with here later on our coaches conversation. I'll just start with the Southern States Athletic Conference, who it's a good league. It's we've talked about it before. A couple years removed from having two teams in the national title game. I know Talladega is no longer in that league, but Talladega and Loyola, and we're going to bring Coach Donald Reyes in from Loyola, who the Wolfpack actually coming off first team ever in Southern States Athletic Conference history to win 4 games in 4 days, and along the way they knocked off the number 1, number 2, and number 3 seeds in the league. But starting off there, Coach, I don't know how much you got to watch, but that Loyola team, and that's what this time of the year is all about. You're in a do or die situation, and they did.
Yeah. Well, they had one of those weeks, right? I mean, we talked about it. Like a lot of teams, I mean, you're looking at that last week. You just want to you got to have one great week, and they had one great week. And they had good games throughout the year, but I know when we had them as the game of the week early in the year, I think that was back maybe week like 3 or 4, something like that.
Yeah.
I'd been pretty impressed with watching them on film, so I know they had some stuff to them, and it could be disruptive and everything else, and it was really cool. They put it together, and Uncle Mo Momentum came and got in their corner for that week, so that's really cool for Coach. Look forward to talking to him. So.
Yeah, and that can be said for a lot of teams. I think we had our final top 25 poll come out this week, and it was just interesting looking back from that first poll to the last one here, and so many different paths to get to where we are right now. And we're seeing a lot of teams that early on in the year who were top 10, top 15 in the country, and then for whatever reason had some hiccups along the way. I know there were several injuries along the way. But then we talked about it. I talked about it last week, but we've talked about it several times on the episode, or on several episodes now. We've had a lot of teams playing some really good basketball late, and they're starting to creep up. And then we saw them in the tournament. A team like St. Thomas, who we've talked about the Sun Conference a lot, and we're going to see how many teams that get in. It's been a good league, and I know that our RPI is pretty strong. So If they can get 5 teams in, we'll see. But St. Thomas, and if anybody watched that St. Thomas Florida Memorial game last night, I mean, that was playoff basketball. I mean, that was big, physical, athletic. I mean, everything left on the court and players making plays. I mean, that's what playoff basketball is about, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, those 2 teams have some dudes.
Yeah.
I mean, that is good luck if you get them in the first round. That's all I'll say. I mean, watching those 2 teams go at it. A couple other really good teams in that league too, but Flomo and St. Thomas are going to be a tough out for whoever they draw in the first round. So hats off to a great game last night.
Yeah.
Both coaches doing a really good job with those programs, and good to see a quality game in a championship match like that.
Yeah, and another just rolling around the leagues a little bit. Arizona Christian is one of those teams too that's been had an up and down year, but a tough SSAC schedule. And I thought the top 2 teams for most of the year in Masters and Arizona Christian, I was good to see them match up one more time. And that game didn't disappoint either. Went all the way down the wire, and the 2-time GSAC Player of the Year, Caleb Lowry, missed a layup to win it. And it looked like he actually missed his footing a little bit, maybe a slick spot on the floor because he didn't look clean. And this is a guy that's pretty skilled, but looked like he hit maybe a wet spot on the floor and threw a ball up at last second and didn't go in. But really good game there too. Going into some of these other games across the country, even in some of these smaller leagues here, Frontier Conference in Montana Tech is back, and I think Carroll will get in too. But that was the battle of the top 2 teams. I thought we saw that across the board a lot this week, which we saw the upsets with Loyola, but we saw a lot of leagues where the top 2 teams, the top 2 seeds, ended up in the title game against each other. And we got a couple more coming up here too, even with Grace and Indiana Wesleyan and teams like that this week, these next couple days.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, on paper, that's how it's laid out, right? As the top 2 teams end up in the title, but it often doesn't go chalk at this time of year. There's usually an upset or 2 along the way or something. So some of those leagues that pan out, and those teams that are bubble teams are rooting for that type of result, right? They're rooting for the 1 versus the 2 in the title game, and hopefully the 1 prevails and all the auto bids go the way they're supposed to go. So more of those teams get in. But yeah, there's some pins and needles for some of these teams that are watching these championship games and tournaments go.
Yeah, and going all the way through Tuesday is going to happen too, because we got some bid stealers still alive right now. I know the Heart of America title game with Peru State teams we get against them. I know in the CCAC league here, we've talked about the youth coach before. I don't know what's going to happen with IU Northwest or IU South Bend. Those are that's a league where IU Northwest won a tiebreaker and got the 2 seed. So they won their game. They did what they were supposed to do, and then Roosevelt lost. So now they have to win again to get that auto bid. And then you look at some of their analytics. You just kind of wonder what happens to them if they lose from the 2 seed. Do they get in? And that goes for several other conferences as well. Some of these 2 seeds lost early in their leagues, and now it's up to the committee if you didn't win that auto bid.
Yeah. And there's some teams that can, like I said, not worry about the auto bid. They're going to get in anyway, just on body of work, and then others that really need that to secure their spot. So be interesting. And then seeding comes into play too, right? It's not even just about getting the auto bid. It's matchups are so important, and so if you don't do well in your conference tournament, that can certainly influence seeding at a minimum, let alone selection.
Well, maybe talk about that, because I know as a former Raider, you have some good insight about what kind of goes into not just the thinking, but just the whole process in general. And I know that you've had several friends. I've had several friends out there that are nervous this time of year, and you don't really have an answer for them. But it's kind of a different process for everybody. But kind of go through that rating process and over the next week, kind of what happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of phone calls, a lot of talking, a lot of Zoom calls, and there's some people that are really making their case, so to speak. I'd love to say that there isn't any of that politicking going on, but there is. People are fighting for their teams. You see it at all levels. I mean, you see in the college football playoff, right? When Alabama looks like they're on the bubble, Nick Saban's on every radio show he can get on trying to make his case, and so are these coaches. I mean, they're making their case to the powers that be, and I don't blame them one bit. So, it's Raiders really, especially those that are on the selection committee, try to do their job with the utmost integrity and base it on the numbers and analytics as much as possible. I'd love to say that the eyeball test doesn't matter, but the eyeball test does matter a little bit. That does influence, a little bit. There's Team A and Team B, and all things are equal. It's who's seen them play, right? Who thinks they got some stuff to them. And so it's tough, and it's really tough to field some of those phone calls too, because they're people that you love and respect, and they just want to see their team get in and and handle those calls and try to be as objective as you can, but also be honest with people about where you see them fitting in and everything else. So it all, usually you don't look at Kansas City and say, we got the wrong 16 teams here, right? But usually by that point, there's been enough, and the Raiders and the selection committee are going to do their best to put the best 64 in, and they probably will. You could probably make a case for some mistakes that get made in that process, whether it's seeding or selection, but at the end of the day, everybody's had the same amount of games this season to control their own destiny and set their own pace, and some teams have taken care of it and some teams haven't. So,
yeah, that's well said. And I think that as you're coming into this week, even from a fan standpoint, number one, everybody thinks that our league is the best league, and I know that.
Oh yeah, everybody, yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Have we had a coach on yet that says, it's the toughest league in the country? Every league's the toughest league in the country, right? They're all good. I'm not saying they're not, but some are tougher than others. Okay.
Yeah, so. No doubt, and I understand the argument from a coach's point too, and even fans. I think that from a fan standpoint, most of these fans are only watching the games in their own league and maybe not catching across the country, and I think that's where the argument comes out, especially when you talk about the quote unquote bubble teams. Here is it's hard to maybe gauge cross league, especially maybe on the if a team didn't travel around a lot in the preseason or whatever. And you mentioned earlier, we've had coaches in the past that have said that they Raiders that have come on in the past and said that they maybe saw somebody in person early in the year that maybe outside their league and had a lot more respect for them because of that, and I think if you're a tournament team and you miss or if you're on that bubble and you miss out this year, maybe look at scheduling some of those Raiders or figuring out some of those classics that you can go play in, that you can go play against maybe other tournament teams, but also get in front of 2 or 3 Raiders that now they've seen you in person. And I think it's human nature when you've seen somebody in person. I mean, you and I have watched probably millions of hours of film not million, but a ton of film in our lifetime.
Feels like
when you see people on film and then you see them in person, it is different too. So
yeah. Well, I remember too when I was in that spot, even just going on Synergy or whatever and catching 100 clips of a team that I didn't know much about when I was doing whether it's Arc Raider or when I was doing the top 25 stuff, it didn't matter. Like sometimes I'd see these teams and the Raider was talking about them, over and over. There's teams so good, and I'd go on and watch and be like, yeah, he's right. And then sometimes I'd go on and watch and be like, you just lost some credibility in my mind, man, because they're not that good. So I think, it's you got to wade through some of the politicking that goes on because leagues and Raiders are trying to position themselves and their teams as well as humanly possible. But it's a really interesting process, and I think watching games, watching other teams, like you said, there's so many tournaments like Thanksgiving time especially. I mean, go hop in the show or something like that where you're with. I mean, the years I went, there's at least 3-4 Raiders playing there, and you got to see 14 teams, 12 teams, and you get your eyes open and the word spreads, and if you make a run while you're there, like, it can really influence things. So scheduling, I think in college hoops, the 3 most important things: recruiting, and scheduling. Right? And so if you can get those 3 things right, you're probably going to do pretty well.
Yeah, and that goes to the second part of this, is that there's 2 ways for your league to get more respect, and that's early season wins and then postseason wins, right? Like if you feel like your league's not getting a lot of respect, you got to be rooting for your team this year, other teams in your league to do well as well, because I think the past couple of years, especially since the merger, the leagues that have put 2 teams in Kansas City, or even maybe they don't make it to Kansas City, but they go 4-1 in the opening round. If you have 5 teams in there, that goes a long ways to when you win ball games in the postseason.
Absolutely. No, it really does. It validates your league, so to speak. Those crossover challenges, like I know when I was at Sun and Southern States was doing them, and I think the Crossroads did it. All kinds of leagues are doing those now, but those kinds of things are really good when you're trying to say, hey, our league versus your league. Well, hey, let's play each other. Let's figure it out. And some people don't want to do that, and that tells you what you need to know also. So I think teams that are willing to do those types of things, and then when it comes time to tip it up in March, you find your way into wins, and your league will get a lot more respect that way for sure.
Yeah, and we'll see how it all plays out. And we're speculating. Like we said, we think the Sun could possibly get 5 teams in. They had great preseason. We're speculating that that preseason, when you win a lot of non-conference games against some good competition, all of a sudden that translates over, and certainly RPI helps out a lot too. But when the ARC ratings, the ARC ARC ratings come out this week, we'll know a lot more. Just because the ARC ratings are kind of a tell-all of kind of what your area is like and where your area view you at. So
once that comes out and you see the auto bids and those the dust is all settled, you can make a pretty clean projection on some teams. Not everybody. Some are going to be left up for chance, but I'd say down to a handful of spots. And that last ARC call is tricky. So it and at the end of the day, the person submitting the button as the head of that ARC makes the final call. So that those subcommittees underneath each ARC, right, they can make a case and they talk it through, but at the end of the day, that representative of the ARC is the one that's making the final decision, right? And so they're entrusted to do that. And I think honestly, the people in those roles, they do that job to the best of their ability, and it is a crappy job at times. It's not fun.
And it's a thankless job probably too.
It is. You're always pissing somebody off. So
yeah, and that's just part of it. And it's unfortunately, I liked it, like, and you mentioned earlier on in the thing, but no matter what the teams that make it, you're always gonna you could extend it out to 100 teams, and the 101st team would be upset that they're missing out. But ultimately, this format it ends up working out. There, usually in when we get to Kansas City, there are maybe some surprises, but ultimately, the top teams are usually there, and then it works itself out along the way, and it's always a great tournament, and that's the number one thing you're looking for is just a great tournament. And like we've talked about all year long, we're going to see some upsets this year. You should see.
Absolutely.
People keep talking about the bracketology reports that I'm putting out, and I'm telling you right now, I legit think that, especially in that maybe 4-5 seed all the way up into the 8-9 seeds, you could go so many different ways, and some of these host sites that were announced this week are influencing some of that too, because you're going to have up to maybe 3 teams this year, which we haven't seen a ton of every year, but 3 teams this year that may host a regional or host a pod, opening round pod, that may not be the top seed in the pod, and that's very difficult to ask a team to go on the road as a top seed and go play somebody else. So some of that seeding, wise as far as bracketology report goes, there's not much difference between a 4-5 and a 7-8. I can tell you that right now. And like we said, we've talked about it all year round. We may see a lot of 12, 13, 14 seeds winning this year just because of the parity of the NEI.
Yeah, and from my observation, it doesn't happen a lot, but the teams that are hosting that are not the top, one of the top, we'll call it 8, how many host sites are, they're not the top in that. If they're not the number 1 seed in that read, they're in trouble because they're going to get somebody sent there that's a dog.
Yeah.
That's not, sounds cool to play at home, right? Until you see the 4 teams that or the 3 other teams you're playing against. So, it'll be super interesting to see how it all pans out. And there's that geography piece too, right? It's not just about, it's not as simple as, hey, here's the top 8, here's the top 8, we seed it out and we'll all get on planes and figure it out. They have to balance. There's a lot of rules around, geography and how far you can send somebody and travel requirements and everything. So it isn't a true like an NCAA Division I, right? I mean, it's a little bit, that's the tricky part. So
yeah, exactly what I was going to throw in there, and I said it earlier today on our bracketology report, is that this is not the NCAA tournament. I mean, yeah, there's some different things on alignment and things. So when you see 7 seed next to your name, you may feel like your team's a 4 or 5, and you may be, but the location may have to send you down to a 7 seed just to be able to, make sure everybody fits in, and that's just part of it, and that's part of the NEI process. I'd much rather, I'll tell you right now, and this is no hate to Division II, but I would much rather have it the way it is than having a true, regional where you're playing maybe a conference team for the third or fourth time of the year, and that's again, no hate on the D2 schools under the way D2 set up, but I like the NEI set up the way it is because they do try to purposely not pair those teams up in the opening rounds.
Yeah, I think this model, and I remember when we started this model, the goal was to just make it a little bit better each year, not overreact, right? Just slowly improve it, and then wake up, let's say 3, 4, 5 years into it and say, okay, is this as good as we can make it? And I think they've made some really cool but small tweaks, right? And they continue to improve it. And yeah, if you compare this against the D2 model, D2 model, you likely are going to play a conference school. You're just going to, like I remember when I was in the RMAC, these teams are going and they're going to go play a conference game in Texas. Yeah. So you both travel, 1,000 miles to San Antonio to go play somebody that is 10 minutes down the road from you. It's just illogical. But so at least the way this is structured, I think they're doing the best they can, and it's a great tournament. I know back when we were all at one site, right, you could put 32 teams and you could do a little bit more true seeding. That's the one benefit, right, of all being at one site is you can really truly seed 1 through 32. But, they're doing the best they can, and it's a really fun format, and you got to give it time, and people will continue to embrace it, I think.
Yeah, I have no doubt on that. And, before we get over to Coach Reyes here, I just want to throw out one special thing. It's not with the men's side. It's actually with the women's side. And big shout out to Grace Bayer out of UHSP. She, a lot of talk about Caitlin Clark and what she's done, and respectfully so. I mean, she's been unbelievable for women's sports, and it's awesome to see. But Grace Bayer, is different levels of play. I understand that, but she also has got 300 more career points, and she's going to end she just ended her career this past weekend as the all-time NEI leading scorer, and actually had a 54-point game again on top of that. A lot of fun to watch, and a heck of a career. I just wanted to give her one shout-out before we ended things here on the opening part of this, and then transition into coach.
Yep, yeah, hats off there. That's awesome, and there's a lot of. I'll say this: it's really been fun to watch people like Caitlin Clark, but even at some of these other the NEI levels, our games were always stacked, men and women. Right, so I just got to watch the women's game, and it's been really fun to watch the women's game grow so much in the last 15, 20 years time I was coaching. And now that I got daughters old enough to be playing, it's pretty fun to be having them watching people like Caitlin Clark sort of change some things for the women's game. It's really cool. So hats off to both them.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is a good time to transition into our coaches conversation with Donald Reyes. Coach's conversation is Loyola head coach Don Reyes. Coach is coming fresh off getting back home. I know off air he said back at 3 a.m. But Coach, that 3 a.m. arrival time is probably pretty good when you three-peat as the Southern State Athletic Conference Tournament champions.
Absolutely, great feeling after a long week, man. Those long bus rides get you, but nothing felt better than waking up this morning and understanding that we were tournament champs.
Well, not just tournament champs, Coach, but the first team in Southern State's Athletic Conference history to win 4 games in 4 days. I'm not trying to brag on myself because we get a lot of things wrong too. But after Will and Carey won, I made a post that said that you guys are going to be a tough out in that tournament, and you guys, I appreciate you proving me right. You guys played some great basketball over those last 4 days, and just so much fun to watch, even as a young group.
Absolutely. We kind of hit our stride kind of going into the conference tournament in, I guess, early February, so to speak. And it just so happened to be versus UT Southern, who we ultimately had to play to win it all. So that kind of got us going, that week and a half prior to the tournament, man. And like you said, we had a great 4 days versus, honestly, really, really, really good competition throughout our league, man. I feel like it's one of, obviously, the best in the country. But our guys stepped up. We were young early on, and we're starting to put it together at the right time. So I'm really excited, obviously, about what's ahead.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, your run recent kind of started with Tennessee Southern too, right? I mean, you knocked them off, and I'm sure on the coaching side of things, right, when those wins happen, you earned them. But with a young group, it kind of is an eye opener too. Like, oh, this is possible, right? We aren't half bad. We are just a few possessions away, right? And then it looks like, I mean, you've really parlayed that into a heck of a run here. So it's been fun to watch you, Coach.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, that I think they were 7 at the time. That number 7 win at home turned into a number 19 win at Mobile, and then that turned to going to William Carey and taking care of business over there, who had just knocked off Mobile, if I'm not mistaken, prior to us doing it. So really good late tough stretch that kind of parlayed us into the conference tournament.
Yeah, getting hot at the right time for sure.
Yep.
When you kind of said it, and I'll let you elaborate more. You said, I know you guys you purposely tested yourself early by going out to the Battle of the Beach. You want to talk about, you know, sometimes or some of the early part of your schedule, but also just kind of how that maybe prolonged the season and then into the SSAC play and then into the tournament.
Absolutely. So kind of give a quick brief rundown, man. So me, after taking over for the national championship team 2 years ago, last year, won 24 games, only the third time in school history at Loyola, which is obviously very special. Had a couple of guys that returned from the national championship team, of which I think maybe 2 in Jalen Galloway and Zach Muller played about 11 to 15 minutes for that national championship team. But everyone else was new or had redshirted. And I brought in a group that I felt like complemented those guys. And they obviously continued the culture that was built, during that national championship run. So within that year, man, we had a bunch of guys that were talented that didn't get a chance to play last year. So all of those guys were here with the program. They were getting their daily reps and working and grinding. So I wanted to extremely test them early in our season. So like you said, we played at the Battle of the Beach, which I feel like is one of the best preseason tournaments in the country. We ended up playing Florida College and Texarkana. We weren't quite ready to figure out kind of who we were, and not to pass it up, but we also played at Xavier, which was in the top 25 early on. I know they had a little lapse there towards the end of the season, but I think they're one of the best teams in the country. We also played LSUS on the road and at home, and obviously had a chance to beat them at their place, which is a tough place to play if anybody's ever been there. So those early lumps, I really wanted to test our guys and battle them because they felt like they knew what it was to be a part of the championship last year, but they were really in the fire, so to speak. So I wanted to make it a point of emphasis to do that. And it kind of gave us a roller coaster of a ride where we could never really put it together. And after suffering our last loss, honestly, versus our last loss, we lost a 6-game span in conference play, of which the total, if you go back and count, in 6 games, we lost by 17 points total. So it was like 2 here, 3 here, 5 here, 7 here. It came free throws. And just going through that agony and those lumps, we kind of took heed to it. We lost our last game versus Blue Mountain at the buzzer. We fouled the young man at the 3-point line, and he made all 3 in our gym. We watched him make those free throws with no time left on the clock. Game was over, and we kind of had the Jesus moment. It's like, all right, man, we're tired of feeling this way. We got to turn it around. And I feel like, honestly, that's when they kind of took heed to everything that I've been preaching throughout the year, and we immediately, UT Southern, Mobile, William Carey, going to the conference tournament, playing a Middle Georgia team that we hadn't played all season. So they had to lock back in on that, and then they knew what was at stake. Facing Stillman, who had beat us twice in the regular season, Life, which had beat us twice in the regular season, and then UT Southern, who we split with in obviously the championship. But we knew it was kind of we had to show that we were ready to take that next step. And the only way to show it that you're ready to take the next step is to go back and face those demons that you didn't quite pass the first time. So, destiny, divine, call it what you want, man. We knew it was ours for the taking. We just had to go out there and prove to everyone, including ourselves, that we were ready to do it.
That's what jumped out to me when I was looking at y'all's schedule this year is like, you probably had, you probably know better than I do, but I think it was about 8 or 9 games that were 5 points or less.
Yep.
And so, if you're going into the tournament and somebody's looking at you, they might say, oh, well, they were, right around 500, whatever for the record. But then you start looking behind the curtain a little bit, and it's like, I'm not so sure I want to see Loyola in the first round. You know what I mean? Like, these guys we're one click away from really, really good on a record standpoint if you go through the whole year. And so, I would imagine in your locker room, you all as a coach, I know you saw the greatness the whole way through, even though you're losing every once in a while, losing some close games. You knew what they could be, right? And you're coaching to that. And now it's actually coming alive a little bit, and there's momentum and everything. So talk about maybe a little bit of the excitement in the locker room, a little bit of oh, okay, we might have a little swagger to us, right? We got a little stuff to us. We can win these games. How are the guys feeling? Like, what's their mindset going into the tournament?
Honestly, right now they're kind of right in the middle. We knew the task heading into Montgomery of what we had to try to overcome, and once they did that, I feel like now they truly 100% believe that hey, we can really do this. We're one of the best teams in the country. Because like I said, we played in Panama early, and I reminded those guys like, man, Freed Hardeman's there. You know, like all the top teams in the nation are there, and it's like this is the best you're going to see, fellas. You're just seeing it so early that you don't know what you're looking at. So now they're obviously on the end of it. They're level-headed. They're ready. They understand what's at stake now. And honestly, it's about confidence is what I really learned at the beginning of my last year here. Every time we stepped between those lines for the last 7 games, we felt like we were never going to lose. And I think that mental switch is kind of the key to unlocking, their aspirations and dreams. They always had it in them, like you said, man. We just been grinding and pushing daily just to get it out of them. So I'm extremely happy for them and proud of them. It's never been done in history, man. 4 games in 4 days was a lot, and our depth had to prevail, and everyone had to step up at some point throughout our run in these last several weeks, and I couldn't be more excited, obviously, for what's ahead. I'm thankful that we do have these I guess the such and so is on the 7th, and we don't play until the 14th. So we got about 11 days of preparation, man. So we're excited.
Yeah, well, and the good part for you guys too is that this isn't new to you. You guys made a tournament last year, so you know the process. No matter where you go, you're gonna understand that 2 games in 2 days, and none of this is going to be a surprise to you when you show up to the NAI National Tournament here either.
No doubt, no question. Last year we were fortunate enough to actually to host. And you also, what you learn from that is, not that we took anyone for granted, but you got to come to play, man, because these last 64, they're all real. They're all battle tested. In some capacity, they've overcome their battles. And obviously, I think truthfully, it comes down to matchups. But that's what I love about our team this year and going into postseason. I feel like we're so diverse that we match up well with a lot of different, styles of play. And I think that's what showed in our tournament run as well, because we played a lot of different caliber of teams that played different styles of basketball. We were obviously able to adapt and overcome in all those situations.
Yeah, well said on the matchups. That's something Coach Libbers and I talk about quite often. Is that that pod is when you first see that pod, that matters more than anything because sometimes you're up against your kryptonite, and sometimes you match up well against teams. And like you said, you match up well against a lot of different teams, but somebody may not be matched up to you. And I can tell you right now, if you want some ultimate sign of respect, I've already had a couple texts from some of the top seeds. Wondering where Loyola is going to be at with your record. They're not going to be a 16 seed, right? Or not even a 15 seed, right? I was like, they're better than a 15 and 16 seed, but I don't know what the committee will agree to me. So we'll see. But I think that was an ultimate sign of respect for you and your program and what you guys have done here, especially late.
No, I definitely appreciate you sharing that with me, man. And to be truthful, like I've heard that obviously in the last couple of days, specifically, in particular amongst my peers and the coaches in our league, and ultimate sign of respect to them and understanding that our record says something, but they knew, you know what I mean? So they weren't taking us for granted. And I'm pretty sure everybody in the country knows, we are Loyola, man. And whether that national championship run is now over, we're here, we're still Loyola, and we're ready to go.
Well said. Well, Coach, we won't take up much more of your time. I know you got 2 weeks to prepare for whoever you get here on Thursday, but we wish you guys the best of luck in the tournament and hopefully see you out in Kansas City.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys for having me, man. Thank you for everything you do for our game and shining light on it. It's extremely important. I've coached for almost 20 years now, and what you guys do on a day-to-day basis for us, man, is unbelievable. These young men, and women, obviously, that participate in our sport at our level are extremely grateful for you guys shining light on what it looks like at our level. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach. Congrats. Great job. Have a good run.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Coach Don Reyes. Really fun last 4 days for the Wolfpack, and as he said, that they're a team that's used to winning. So for them to get back and three-peat as champs, and he's been there for the head coach for the last 2 of them. I'm sure it's been a thrill for them. But Coach, we got a couple more games obviously coming up here for conference tournament championship games, and so Monday and Tuesday is going to be filled with some more great games, but. Ultimately, no matter what happens over the next couple of days, most of the eyes are going to be turning towards Thursday and that selection show.
Yep, yeah, for sure. And Coach right there, I mean, their run this week kind of exemplifies, what conference tournament basketball is all about. So it's really cool to have him on, and love his energy. And like I said, I think the Wolfpack are one of those teams that, they had so many close games throughout the year that they just needed to crack through, and they've cracked through now. So winning 7 in a row, and they got 9 of their losses by 5 points or less. Again, if I'm drawing them in the first round, I'm a little nervous about that. I'm not looking forward to that matchup. So hats off to them. There's so many good teams. Such a fun time of year. Great couple days coming with some championships, and then we'll get that bracket all dusted off and figure out who's going forward from here. So fun week.
That's probably a Loyola team that just to add one more tidbit in here that if you're listening to us, you're an assistant coach that draws Loyola, maybe leave that record out of the scouting report that you hand to the kids, because you don't want your kids focused in on their record, because that is a team that far exceeds their record at 14 and 17 overall. That's one of those that you're just like, okay, we're not going to let our kids see that. Yeah, we're not going to let our kids see that. We'll focus in on the actual things that matter, and that's the current state of the Wolfpack, and they're playing pretty good basketball. We have a lot of teams playing some good basketball too, and we'll see what happens. If you're a bubble team, the only thing I can say is that I know it's nerve-wracking, but it is a credit to the NEI. It really is, about how many good teams we have going right now, and there are going to be some good teams left out of this tournament, and it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of what it is. It's still going to be a really, really good tournament, and can't wait. But I know for us, we're pretty excited. We're going to be taping our preview show, and that's tournament preview show a couple days after the selection show. It'll be released on the NEI YouTube channels, to make sure you're turning in over there. But as always, like and subscribe our channel as well. We're going to try to do some more summer content, and I know Coach and I have some stuff up our sleeves that we got to test out as well. I'm not ready to fully tease that out yet, but we're excited for some things to develop into next year as well. But till next time, and that'll be the preview show. This is Coach Lovers Jr. signing off.
We gonna